Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Small Town, Big Engagement. We are broadcasting live today from the Clermont Chamber of Commerce out in Clermont County, Ohio. I'm so excited about today's topic today. It's two of my favorite things, engagement and leadership. But the biggest reason that I am so excited is because I've got my amazing co-host here with me today, Bob Pautke, who is the Director of Lead Clermont.
Oh, Sarah, thank you. You're too kind, and the excitement is all mine, by the way. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are going to have a great time today on this webinar. I want to go over, just like all of our webinars that we do, I want to go over a few housekeeping items so that way we can all stay on track and figure out how to make sure we have a great webinar. So the first thing is, if you have a question today, we really want this to be interactive. So feel free to enter your questions as you have them. We'll answer them live as you have them. We'll also have a live interactive question and answer session at the end. So just enter it into the chat box. Also, I want to make sure that everybody knows this is going to be recorded. So chances are you're going to be sitting at your desk today and that you're going to think, everybody should have seen this in my department. So we'll send you a link. Also, this isn't your typical webinar. So sometimes when you attend webinars, it's like you sit through the whole thing and at the very end, they're going to give you that gold gem that you needed. This isn't how our webinars work. Every single slide is going to be something of value to you. So that you are leaving today's webinar being really empowered and armed with information so that you can go back and really innovate and lead in a way that you'll need to. The other thing is, if you have any technical difficulties, if everyone is able to see the screen now, you should be able to see the housekeeping screen should be up on your screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. If you cannot see the slide advance, then we will figure that out. It looks like some people are having trouble getting their slides to advance, so we're going to be working on that right now. If you want to keep the conversation going, we're going to be able to do that with at our Twitter handle at Circle News. We'd love to be able to keep all of the excitement going. Tweet at us. We'll tweet you back, and we can stay connected that way. So it looks like we've got everybody on the same page now with our slides. We're going to advance them again, and I'll introduce myself. This is me, and I've worn a lot of different hats. I share part of my journey just so that you know I've been in your seat. I've worked for a local chamber. I then hopped over to the Cincinnati Bengals and did some game day entertainment and marketing. I've worked for a public sewer district and even a school district. And the reason why I share this is because every hat that I wore, I needed to make sure that we not only communicated, but really engaged our audience. So this is something that I think about 25 hours a day. And it's exciting that we're going to be able to connect engagement with leadership. And so I've got my leadership expert here with me, Bob. I'm so excited that you're here. And I want you to share all of your journey so that people know you wear a lot of different hats. So can you talk about those?
I do. And I'll spare everybody the entire journey, but I'll give some current highlights. So really at the core of my purpose is helping unleash human potential. I think there's magnificence in every person, and so the work that I do, kind of the common thread is as best I can to help folks do that. I currently have positions in both the public and private sector. I'm the chair of the board of Pierce Township trustees. So it's an elected position, and I try to bring as much value as I can to my neighbors. I have my own company that works on leadership development, personal development, and the like. Pretty active in the Clermont Chamber of Commerce. We'll talk a little bit later, I think, Sarah, about Clermont County,
Yes.
so I'll hold that explanation. And I spent 10 years volunteering at the Job Search Focus Group, leading it. We served over the course of its 25 years, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 people who were un- and underemployed. So trying to provide them with hope, help, and healing for their next career move. So, and I'm thrilled to be here today.
All right. Well, we have folks, Bob, from all over the country listening to this webinar today. So in case they're not familiar with Clermont County, where are we?
Okay, well, if you looked at the state of Ohio, it looks like a heart, so we like to believe we're the heart of America. Clermont County is in the southwest corner. Clermont is one of 88 counties in Ohio, about 210,000 people. We're an eastern suburb of Cincinnati, so we are both urban influenced and rural influenced. And in fact, our county is very diverse in that regard. I mean, it's got a strong agricultural background, and yet there's a lot of economic development and commercial development that's taken place over the last 25 years. And with that comes a lot of change. And to manage through change effectively really does take leadership, and really takes engagement by the folks, the residents, and the businesses that are here, and those prospectively that want to choose Clermont County as a place to live, work, and play.
Well, Clermont County has it going on. I'm just going to say it.
We got it going on, Sarah.
You do. I am just amazed that you really do have this amazing best of both worlds. You're talking about the urban and the rural, but at the heart of all of that in this county is really innovation. And you've got a lot of amazing leaders, and I cannot wait to dive really deep into all of the individuals that unlocked their potential and now what's happening now out in this county. It's really amazing. So today we are going to talk about the link between disengagement. If you have a disengaged community, citizens, whether it be alumni, students, Bob, this really comes down to, this is a leadership issue. And I don't know if people have made that connection, but can you talk about that for a second?
It truly is a leadership issue. You know, a fundamental definition of leadership is influence. And so we like to believe and we teach effective ethical leadership. But nonetheless, leadership is about influence. And so it's about influencing whatever the constituency that you're a part of, you know, be it a work team, a business, a family, or a county, a community like Clermont. And so it's being able to influence towards some kind of inspired vision, where do we want to be? You know, what do we value? How do we build on our values that'll take us to, the North Star that we define for ourselves? And so leaders need to be able to influence. Leaders also need to be influenced, need to be able to listen and hear, what the general population is interested in. And so we'll go through some details about the agenda of the future project and ultimately Connect Clermont. So we'll be talking about that later on.
Great.
Clearly, to your point, leadership is about engagement. Lack of leadership is really about disengagement.
Well, so what we're going to do, again, this is for our audience, is Bob and I are going to tag team the next few slides. So we're going to start with this question of, why are people disengaged? And this is something that I know the Circle team has really thought about this issue, 25 hours a day. So I'm going to sort of start with that piece, and then we're going to link it to your piece, Bob, and really get down into how that is a connector to leadership. So when you think about your audience being disengaged, and I share this because, if you're sitting in the audience today, people are doing great, amazing things. Here in Clermont County, lots of great nonprofits, for-profit, your whole county's doing great stuff. But why is it that maybe sometimes the citizens, they don't know what is this issue? So whenever you're trying to get down to the heart of a matter, you ask the question and then you ask why like 25 more times. So we really are going to drill down to, why is it that it's so difficult these days with all the communication channels that we have? Is it so difficult to engage people? So first reason is This is a quote, again, that anybody sitting in our audience today, these are a whole series, these next few slides of things that you can take back to your team and say, this is why this is so hard. So if you think about now, every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization up until 2003. Can you believe that?
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
We are bombarded.
We are.
We're
drowning in stuff.
Yes. So this is the first issue, that there's so much content and so many messages being thrown at us that everybody is really underwater. Next one is 88 emails a day. Bob, how many do you receive a day?
I'm on the high end of this. I'm driving that average up.
Well,
and having a difficult time getting through it, by the way.
Yeah. So I think this is a reminder that, hey, you're competing with at least 87 other folks, sending things and really wanting to think about that inbox real estate. So next one, and Bob, you can speak to this, particularly out in this county, you've got everybody north of the baby boomer down to the millennial, and they all like to communicate differently.
Yeah, very much. And so personally, experientially, in running the Lead Clermont Leadership Program, Community Leadership Program, a year-long program, so we have across the spectrum of people that come in every year that are different age groups. And so trying to do a one-size-fits-all communicate with them and expect to be communicate back doesn't work. And so we have to have flexibility, and we have to have different methods, and we have to adopt different methods for getting our message out and for listening and being able to hear the message back.
Yes. Let's talk about that millennial group. This is one that we've really dug into, particularly when we're working with universities, and the millennials, they like to communicate in a way that is personalized. They don't know a world without Netflix, without Pandora, and it's almost as if they are getting annoyed. If you're not up to speed, Netflix knows me. They know what movies I like. Pandora knows what music I like. How is it that my church, my school, my alma mater, the nonprofit I'm volunteering for, how do they not? What's up with that?
So again, it's not just one size fits all anymore. I mean, that ship has sailed. And so if you want to effectively communicate and engage, then you really have to engage on a topic that they're interested in and in the methodology that they are interested in. And the they is not just the millennials. I mean, it's every generation. Wherever you are, we will all be more effective if we're communicating in a style, in a manner, and in a method that actually gets to them. Because at the end of the day, what's important is the engagement, is that engagement between the two parties. It's less important how that's taking place, or it's less important that the method that I want to use is more important than the method that Claire, let's say, might want to use, or that a Sam might want to use. But rather, what does a Claire or Sam want? When do they want it? In what manner do they want it? And so if I want to engage with them, for instance, I better understand what's going to really grab them, what's going to be the hook.
Well, and that, I think, is where we really start linking this leadership issue. Like, I remember the late Stephen Covey. His definition of leadership was, it wasn't about you, the leader. It was really making the other person see their strengths so clearly that it's undeniable to them. So I can't wait to dive into this Clermont story, because when you talked about leadership really unlocking that human potential for everybody to be great, you guys have found a way to really engage the strengths and the interests and the talents of every individual citizen. And that's that link. I love that leadership and engagement link. So we're going to talk more about that.
I can't wait. Woo woo.
I know. So this is, again, this series of slides, another this is going to be the cold glass of water to the face. So I'm going to give everybody a warning here. Get ready for this particular slide. So this was my newsletter and I love Party City, but I have 2 little girls. So wasn't really interested in the Major League Baseball stuff. Here's another newsletter that we've received. And here is the big aha. This is a newsletter, Bob, look at this. From 1864, it virtually looks the same.
It looks the same. And that's striking.
It is. And so this is the point where even we at Circle thought, my goodness, we are still communicating the way that we did over 150 years ago. Something has got to change. So I'm getting another, lots of already questions. They're engaging. Bob, they're engaging. I'm so excited. Let's take a question
influence.
now. So we've got, what strategy can you offer for the constant naysayer, for those with the loudest voice? I love this question. That is always negative. Beyond listening, inviting participation, inviting suggestions, and even trying to work some projects those parties put forth, what approach can a leader take with those few that are still spouting negativity?
So sadly, in my experience, the naysayers are everywhere. And so I would say that our collective experience is to listen. Now the questioner did identify that. All of us want to be listened to, and we want to feel like the other party has heard us. So, and it takes a skill, and sadly, collectively, we're not teaching empathic listening enough, in my view. But listening is a huge deal, and listening to understand, not listening to prepare my response. So I think listening is a really, really big deal. I would suggest another way is modeling, so behaving in a way that is focused on strengths and focused on the positive. And again, from experience, I've seen naysayers turn their behavior around when they, one, feel listened to, and they're observing somebody else or several somebodies that are behaving in a positive way and taking a positive attitude and looking at a strengths-based approach. And I think they see this is a better way. Ultimately, if you run out of energy and those two aren't working, I think a caring challenge is like, why are you focusing on the negative? I mean, do you have a positive contribution, a positive suggestion, a positive idea, something that you can contribute towards moving whatever we're trying to get to, moving to that? And if you want to influence an adjustment, a tweak, do it in a positive nature.
Well, and I know we're also going to talk about the strategies that even when we were onboarding some of your folks to circle, some strategic ways to bring those naysayers in, treat them as influencers, and get their buy-in, up front, so that then they become sort of a leader and a catalyst and the voice for that, but position them in that way. So we're gonna continue to talk about that.
And that's really an engagement strategy. So when we listen to the naysayer and we get our back up and then challenge back in a naysaying way, what really arguably is a naysaying way, that's a disengagement strategy. But listening and trying to bring somebody in, how can you influence a modification here based on what you're thinking? That's an engagement strategy.
Well, and your innovation has been based on listening. The whole strategy that every step of the way has really shown that. So we're going to continue to talk about that. Thank you for that question. Keep them coming, please. So this is a slide. I love this slide. Look at that. What is that?
That's got to be a llama or an alpaca.
Yeah, that's
or
creepy.
A naysayer.
Right, and what's frustrating is you do all these things, and still at the end of the day, people are like, I just didn't know Clermont County was doing all that great stuff out there, right? So this is frustrating, particularly, again, and I know we've got a lot of amazing communicators even sitting in our audience today, that you sort of beat your head against the wall that how can people with, again, putting all of this information on the website, in the newsletter, on Facebook, on Twitter, still we've got citizens saying, I just didn't know. Yes. So I want to now transition into this Clermont story, and when you, Bob, were really thinking about the leaders in your community, you sort of were asking these what-if questions. So the first question that you guys asked was, again, going back to this definition of leadership, what if every citizen could unlock their potential for greatness?
So this question, amongst others, was asked by a number of folks that have, I'd say, positions of influence, even though I think everybody has a position of influence. And then the work that we're about to enter into a discussion about really came about in 2012, when a member of our lead Clermont class, that year's lead Clermont class, Dave Gooch, who happens to be the president of Park National Bank here in Southwest Ohio, asked a question. He and his classmates asked a question. It's like, well, what's the plan here for Clermont County? I mean, what do we want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now? And there wasn't a good answer. And we said, well, how about if we dust off our strategic plan? He goes, well, how much dust does it have on it? It's got about 25 years worth of dust. And so we dusted it out, and that class took upon itself, and Dave in particular took leadership of it, in trying to determine what has been done with that. Is it still relevant, or do we need to do something else? Do we need to create a new plan? And so that seed is what germinated and took us down the path of what we're about to talk about. And it was taking a look at what is the potential in citizens? What's the potential of business owners here? And how do we understand what it is that they're thinking, and what is it that they would like this great county of ours, a great place to live, work, and play? How do we improve? How do we define and improve quality of life here in Clermont County?
And how lucky to have leaders like Dave Gooch, and even that whole team out there at Park National Bank. Even that culture, you can see that there is great leadership out there, and that's manifested then out. I mean, they're involved in everything.
Very true. Very true.
That's exciting. Very lucky to have guys like Dave. You also asked this question: what if you could engage the entire community, from the rural to the urban?
Right. So this was very much how do we engage everybody? So should we develop a plan with 6 or 7 people, locked up in a conference room someplace, and we'll feed them coffee and throw in some red meat, and you've got a couple of days and come out with the plan for the next 25 years? It's not going to work. It doesn't engage anybody but those 5 or 6 people. And so how do we go about getting the voice of everybody in Clermont County is really what we went after. And we ended up taking a strengths-based approach. Affirmative inquiry is what it's called, and we engaged some experts in that to help us do that. And we went out and asked questions about what do you like best about our county, and what would you like to see happen. There were no questions about what do you hate about it, what's your naysayer comment about the county, what don't you like.
Right.
It was all what do you like and what would you like to see. And at its core, taking a strengths-based approach to ask those questions, which is arguably an action of influence. It's an action of leadership, in my view, is how do we engage? And so that engagement took place over the course of almost a year, where community conversations took place in churches, in township halls, in people's living rooms, in conference rooms, inside of organizations, inside of neighborhoods. And from that collective engagement came a series of ideas of, well, what do we want, and what does the community want? And so we created this thing called the Agenda for the Future, which was all grassroots based. It was all from an engaged community, and a community, as I said earlier, of 200,000 plus people. That's very diverse. It's very diverse in its background and history and all, and yet it coalesces around the fact that as a county we are a community. And as that community, these are the things that we want to do. And some values that I think we'll talk about in a little while is, we want economic growth, but we don't want to lose our small town feel, our rural small town feel. And so very much those 2 statements are at the core of what we valued. And then here are 8 broad themes or areas where the community says we want to focus. And all of that was coalesced into a plan.
That's amazing. I am sitting here thinking, again, if I'm in the audience, that wow, that feels ginormous. It feels like, how do we do all of that? And that's why I'm excited that today you're going to be able to give them some sort of framework to organize their thinking in, hey, these were the steps that we took to actually get there, so that we could unlock, the great potential of other communities,
Absolutely.
Around our country. So let's jump in, because you've got that shared vision. But if we work our way backwards, this was really the challenge that using the leadership challenge, these 5 steps. We're going to go through each one of these, but can you explain a little bit about the leadership challenge, what it is, and how this sort of provided your framework to get to really enacting and living that shared vision?
So the Leadership Challenge was created some 30 years ago through the research of who are now my friends, Barry Posner and Jim Kouzes. And so they've written their book called The Leadership Challenge. It's now in its 5th edition. It's considered by many one of the top 10 business books of all time. And so the genius of what Jim and Barry did was, from a research base, and the research continues to this very moment, so over the course of 30 years it's updated. The genius of what they did is they took that research and this often nebulous question about what is leadership. If you ask 5 people, you'll get 9 different answers.
Right.
And so they created these 5 practices that anybody that's listening today will understand them. The difficulty is in implementing and sustaining.
Yeah.
But the understanding is really pretty easy. So it's modeled the way. It's know what your values are. It's walking the talk. It's inspiring a shared vision. And the 2 words are having a vision, but it's also a shared vision.
Got it.
So that all of us together are working towards. And the agenda for the future example that we're talking about here today is, here are these 8 things that we want to do. Here's our values. And it came from the community, not 6 different people. Challenge the process is, don't sit on the status quo. Anybody, whether it's the leader or somebody in any organization or any community, if they want to question why do we do that, that they're encouraged to do that. It's not why do we do that, and then the leader says that's a stupid question, because you'll never get another never get another hint ever again.
Right.
Enable others to act. It's like, okay, so if we know where we're trying to head, we know the values that we're based on, we're making process changes or whatever those changes are that are necessary to improve. So like, how do we enable everybody to act in a way that moves us forward? And encourage the heart is, anybody that's listening, this practice is somewhat easy to understand, is think about a time right now, think about a time in your past where somebody said thank you to you, I appreciate you, in front of a peer, a coworker or whatever. Remember how good that made you feel? So all of us ought to be saying thank you and identifying good work that people do.
We're going to dive in and actually see how you did each one of these. So let's take the first one. You started with really getting the values of this town.
So what the community said from all of those community conversations, Sarah, that I just mentioned, across the entire county, what they said is, we really want balanced growth and development, but we want to maintain our rural small town feel. And so it's on the screen for people to see. We want to value those things that are important to us, our history, the things that we love about our county, but at the same time, we don't want to stagnate. We want growth. We want economic growth, economic vitality that helps improve our quality of life, but we want it in a balanced way. And so I think we're going to move now into those themes that I talked about: economic development, transportation, parks and recreation, community, lifelong learning, health and wellness, housing. And so each of those themes that we just quickly identified is what came out of. It's the synthesis of all of those community conversations. These are the things that people are interested in. And then within that, there are a variety of goals within each of those. And so there's now people that are enabled and more that are being enabled to go off and act.
So then were there even leaders didn't you have work teams
Yes.
that were sort of setting an example of how to operate and how to really figure out how to move the needle on each one of those?
Yes. So at a macro sense, you could say that what was done by creating this agenda for the future and doing it through affirmative inquiry, which is a strengths-based approach, and asking questions about what do you like most. At a macro level, that set the initial example. And then for each of those themes that we just ran through pretty quickly, there were chairs and co-chairs who were operating in a strengths-based, influence, listening approach to try to understand, okay, so to make this happen, what are the goals that need to take place? And who are the people that we need to engage? And who's doing work out there now that is good work that we could then highlight, that somebody else could go, boy, if we acted that way, or if we did that kind of thing, it's a model the way. It's walk the talk.
And then under that, you had this beautiful umbrella for Agenda for the Future. This was really that shared vision that you operated under.
Yeah, it's the shared vision that was created from this process. So all those community conversations, the synthesis, public meetings where they voted on everything that we heard and helped prioritize that, et cetera, et cetera. And so now this Agenda for the Future, that is the inspired shared vision, because people were engaged, people contributed, people helped create this thing. that is now our strategic plan. And then the intent, of course, is to maintain this thing so that we don't have to wait another 25 years for somebody to go, what are we all about?
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, so you get the troops rallied, you get all of these innovators in a room, you're starting to really grow the work teams and starting to do the work, and that's where sort of our team showed up, because then at that point, there was this, I would say, opportunity. Now, I'm not going to say challenge. Trying to be positive here, Bob. I'm trying to,
You're feeling the vibe?
Yes, I'm feeling the vibe here. So there was this really interesting point where the Circle team showed up, and there was an idea of, okay, we're going to do all these things, and this is just sort of an example of what a community website looks like. Let's put everything on this website. And somebody in the room said, wait a minute, there might be a better way, because you're doing amazing things. How are we going to get all of this information out there to really engage people around each things, like around everything that's going on with the parks and everything that's going on with life learning? How are we now going to keep this engagement train going? So we're going to now jump into, we've got this whole backdrop of this, how all these leadership strategies got everybody in the room, everybody start to working, but this seems like the point where people get stuck. Like, great plan, how are we going to execute that, and how do we have almost a communication tool to keep everybody engaged?
It very much became, so the community theme, and the chairs, Teresa Herron and Michelle Hamilton, we're looking at and being asked by every other team, how do we get the word out about what we're doing on a macro level? How do we get the word out about each of these themes? How do we get the word out and engage the community in each of these goals? And so somebody that's sitting out there in Pierce Township may be very interested in Parks and Rec, less interested on housing. Not that housing's not important, but just, so how do we do that? And so then the conversations, it is kind of a challenge, the process thing, because the common way to do that in people's mind is, well, we'll build a website and we'll put every single thing that's known about this entire county and 200,000 people in that website. Oh my gosh, how are we going to do that? Well, we don't know, but that's a good idea. And then we'll send out newsletters. And so we'll go buy mailing lists, or we'll do whatever. And we'll send out newsletters. And the aha, or the challenge, the process moment came when it was like, there must be a more effective way of doing this. And nobody getting their nose out of joint by saying, your website idea is a bad idea, but what's a better way to do this? And so then we were introduced to the Circle team.
Yes, and I have loved this story about Clermont County, because you guys really were pioneers with us. I mean, we were just getting started, and your team and your people even helped us and even challenged our platform, like, but could your platform do this? And what about this? And together, it was amazing that this platform was really influenced and built a large part by the people, for the people kind of thing. So I love that, we're going to jump into this and really show how this personalization of information, and how do we keep this story going of, you've asked these people what their personal interests are, you've asked them what they've cared about, now there's this expectation that you guys are going to deliver on that.
Yes.
So here is how our platform works. So this is the old way, right? You were talking about this one size fits all. People have access to websites and access to information. How do we flip this? Again, challenging that process to get access to information that each citizen wants. That's the key, right? So here's how our platform works. Again, this was also built, again, based on lots of leaders in Clermont County, helping us to figure out, how do we make this platform be the best that it can be? So here's how it works. We take all of the amazing content, all that content that you saw on that website. It's all great stuff. Everybody in the audience today is producing great things. So we take everything that you're doing, no matter if it's on Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube, your website, or if you want to post it right into Circle, you can do that. And we take each individual story, and here's where we really continue that leadership trend. We cross-reference that with the interest and the passion and the strengths and the talents of your audience. And so we've got it tagged. We've got each individual story. We know what it's about, and we know, based on the interest of your audience, the best tags for it. And this becomes one of 6 pieces of information that fuel automatically on the back end this personalization engine. So again, just like you asked each individual citizen, what do you care about? And we're going to show you this flow, how it works. When people are imported into Connect Clermont now, they get asked, what do you care about? So that we know right out of the gate what each citizen cares about. Then we ask them, when do you want this information, right? There's no more Googling when's the best time to send out the newsletter, right? This system will ask each citizen that. What format do you like it in? You had talked about that baby boomer liking that traditional newsletter, down to the millennial liking just sort of headlines. Whatever they want, they get to pick. Then we're going to learn about their implicit interest. So, Bob, this is where you might not have told me that you love lifelong learning, but everything coming out of Connect Clermont about lifelong learning, you're reading, and our site knows that through your behavior. So we're going to continue to order stories up about that to keep you engaging and listening. And then you can follow certain people. I even know when the Clermont Chamber hopped on Circle, they even said, part of their feedback was, wow, we love hearing from all the different staff members, and it really shows the full personality, of the chamber. So this is really the flow. What do you care about? You get to pick all of the different topics. What schedule do you love? Do you want to get this information? And then what format do you want the information in? And then they can, share that to Facebook, and that creates really this virility that that you can see this. So we've got now your subject line is personalized, and all of this is something from Goshen. This is a community out here, and now all of your newsletters are personalized with all of the information that you want and love. So this listening that's so critical that you're talking about with leadership is all happening automatically on the back end from a communication perspective.
Absolutely.
And then you're responding in a way where you are delivering people the right information at the right time based on these skills and these interests. So I'll show another example. We work with a lot of universities too. I share this because I know there's some folks from different genres in our audience today. You can see the first kid is interested in innovation history, and he wants to follow this Professor Gary. And this could even be a citizen, right? They could have been interested in economic opportunity, transportation, or parks, right?
Right.
The second citizen, or here in this case alum, is interested in completely different things. But if you lean in, you can see that the first story for that woman is the second story for the first guy. And that's because that story is going to be more engaging so that you can continue to get your audience to really lean in and listen. I know this was another thing important to your group, Bob. It had to be responsive. It had to work on tablets and mobile devices.
Right.
So that was something that I know that was really important to you as well. And now the amazing thing is, instead of having sort of just email, first name, last name, which is what you guys had in a database, that full person to really unlock their potential, now we know who they are, each citizen, what they love and what their interests are. And if you wanted to put that into a back-end system, we have integration too that's built now. So let's say that Clermont County Chamber is planning that golf outing, right? They might be low on some of their registrations. They can now search, who is everybody in our community that loves golf? Or Parks and Rec, say they're doing something now, right? They can search that feature. So talk to me a little bit, Bob, again, how this matches. This Insights page is really now tapping into the strengths of each individual citizen.
So let's use a parks example. So Pierce is in the process of planning what is being called Park Fest 2016. And so through that planning process and being able to be able to both disseminate information about Park Fest, and anybody in the county that has said that they're interested in it now gets information about that. We would not have any idea how to get to all of those interested party to begin with. Secondly, it's engaged on a cross. I mean, I think one of the strengths of Circle, one of the additional strengths of Circle, is not only getting information out that the individual wants, but there's this cross-pollination capability. All of a sudden, people that have similar kinds of interests are getting similar kinds of content and can connect with one another, whether it's the individual or the organization itself. And so we have actually seen that grow organically through the Parks and Recreation folks in the county that are interested in such things, and those that are engaged in the development of this particular theme, and those that are out there now organizing an event. And all of a sudden, there is a capability that didn't exist before, that all of them can know about one another.
Yeah.
So not just the content of an individual thing, but one another. And kind of, I think what'll grow, we've seen it start to grow, and I think it'll grow, I think it'll hockey stick up, quite honestly, where it will weave a stronger social fabric across our county, across our community.
Well, and it's exciting to think that there's not one need of a citizen that you now can't meet like that. I mean, if a kid has a need, a student, I know Glen Estee Middle School is on.
Right.
That's exciting to be able to, even now your county has that feel like we are a family out here.
Yes.
And we can help each other out by really having unearthed all of the assets, which again goes back to unleashing that human potential within every single citizen.
It really does.
That's exciting. So this is something that I know, working with great folks like your Clermont Library. I'm going to give a shout out to Teresa Herron. And I've loved working, with the Michelle Hamiltons of the world from Park. I know that we've loved to toss things out and make data now not so scary, and make it really easy for people to say, hey, here's all the stories that you're posting. Here's how they're trending. We've really tried to make these dashboards give the answers to the test. These are the interests of your audience. This is what content is resonating, what's not. And now you can see who's the most engaged, but more importantly, who's the least engaged in your community and what their interests are, so that you can re-engage them. Next thing is Pierce Township. I want to talk about this because Jenny Newcomb out there hopped on, and Pierce got one of our highest open rates ever on Circle at 107%. So talk about that, of what's things that are going out in Pierce Township, and this 107% open rate means everybody is opening it and they're sharing things out now.
So there were a lot of community conversations that took place out in Clermont County. So that began the engagement. I mean, it does come back to leadership and engagement in its relationship. So there were a lot of community conversations, so people began to be engaged. There was, Jenny Newcomb, who does work for Pierce, PR and marketing kind of work, got the word out and engaged people. And then what we started to see, I'll give you one example. So there was this debate that was going on pre-Circle about whether the Pierce Police Department ought to have a separate Facebook page than Pierce Township as the township, and it became a debate. And so then all of a sudden, people that were interested in the crime rate, the police, the content that the police department was putting out, those people now had the opportunity to get whatever they wanted.
Yes.
And those that were saying, I don't need to know all of that, but I'd like to know about economic development, they can now go get their economic development.
Yes.
And so it just squashed the debate and increased engagement on more people in areas that they were interested in. So it was, this open rate that you're highlighting here was really the result, in my view, of the larger number of community conversations that began the engagement. And now we can engage people when they want, about what they want, and they love it. They love it.
Yeah. We've got a question that's come in about what's the population of Clermont County?
200, it's a little over 200,000 people.
Okay, but Pierce Township, that township, do you know what, I'm going to stump you here, do you know what the population is of Pierce Township?
It's about 15,000 people.
So I wanted to mention that because this question is, what's the smallest population for which you've implemented, this system? We've got from the tiny guys, Goshen and, Pierce to really large populations that, have hopped on and seen success. So that's exciting.
So yeah, so within Clermont, if you looked at a township, 15,000, some townships are a little bit smaller, so maybe it's in the range of 8,000 to 15, something like that, up to arguably 200,000 plus people.
Well, and the other thing that
and then there's separate organizations of areas of interest. So, I mean, it can handle whatever number exists.
Yeah. I like this, though, that I like talking about the small town. That's why we named this webinar this. I come from a small town. I come from a rural town.
I feel like singing a song.
I'm telling you. Let's go. What are we going to sing?
I live in a small town.
Yes.
John Mellencamp.
Yes. And you want to just break out a lyric or two?
I'm thinking we should.
All right.
And I've been practicing, by the way, my rap stuff, so I might be able to rap some of this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well at the end,
That's
we'll go into the
Wait,
rap.
no, we won't do that.
Okay.
We will spare these kind people that are on here.
Well, I want to say something though about the small town people because and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here. Bob's like, "Oh no, what is she going to say?" But Clermont County to me felt like an underdog, right? That I come from a town that, again, grew up in a rural community. Our high school was called the Hick High School, and I love that we together have built a tool that, by listening again to the needs, that really levels the playing field. Some of these cities have resources and they have amazing things, but if you're a small town, now you can look as great as the big guys and engage. Now everyone in your community, although you might not have the resources that a big town might have.
It's very true. So Clermont is a eastern suburb of Cincinnati, one of the top 20 cities in America, and it's great. We have access. From where I live in Clermont County, I can be in the heart of Cincinnati in 20 minutes, and probably parked and in a venue in 25 minutes most days. So it's got access to an interstate system, so I can go anywhere in North America. It's got all of that, but it's not in and of itself a major city. And so there has been this feeling over the time, well, we're not da-da-da-da-da. But the resources that we have that will match anybody, and I'm not knocking Cincinnati, I'm not knocking Hamilton County, we're just different. But the resources that we have is this greatness in every one of those 200,000 people. And if we can, one, believe that everybody of those 200,000 and everybody else on our planet, by the way, but that 200,000 that have just this magnificence inside of them, and if we can tap in and allow them to contribute, to listen to them, and to give them information on progress, on the things that they said are important, we can match anybody.
Yeah. Yes.
We can match anybody.
And now that story
and this platform
has
helps.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that because I know we've got some small town guys out there listening to us today that, yes, you can, through innovation, through listening, through your strategies, really unlock that and change the story of your town.
Absolutely. So strengths, focusing on strengths, not on weakness. And that's not to say that you don't try to address the things that you're not excellent in, but it's not focusing just on those things. It's not focusing merely on the naysayer. It's what are our strengths? What are the strengths of the individual human? What's the strengths of the township? What are the strengths of our community, of our county? So focusing on that, giving people a voice, listening to them empathically, then putting together a plan, which we've done through this Agenda for the Future. We now have spun that into an organization called Connect Clermont. You had mentioned that earlier. It's a not-for-profit, and its role is to be a community advocate. Its role is to influence this Agenda for the Future, these 8 themes, and its role is to keep it current so we don't have to wait another 25 years for somebody that's in the future, Lead Clermont 2050 or whatever it is that says, well, what's our plan? We got tremendous strengths out here, and if we can engage people, provide some leadership, and let their leadership flourish, we can compete with anybody.
Well, and I want to share not only Pierce, but we've got over 400 circles, on Circle now, and I share these metrics because you can see, I want to point out that click-through rate. This is a rate for folks who don't know what click-through means, where people are actually clicking on things that are in these newsletters. Look at that click-through rate on Circle compared to the national average. And whether you use an automated personalization tool like Circle or not, I want to point this out because personalization is the way that it's going. You really need to think about, how am I going to innovate from just simply disseminating information to engaging my community and engaging every member of my community. So personalization is where it's going. Now, we've talked a lot about nonprofits, and I want to mention this really quickly because what Clermont is now going to be able to do is now turn all of these newsletters and these townships into potential revenue generating, because the businesses are also a big part of your community here. You talked about that. Yep. Urban, now they can get in front and be associated with all the great things, and they can sponsor your newsletters, really bridging that marketing and sponsorship, providing real value, and all of that money now goes back to all of those nonprofits and townships, and that's an exciting piece to this.
It is, and it's, I think of it as the fruit of this engagement. It's the fruit of engaging a community and the fruit of then having a platform like Circle that gives us capacity and capability way beyond what we thought, before we, quote, challenged the process.
Yeah.
And so now a business that can do the kinds of sponsor relationships and generate revenue for a cause, I mean, it really is the fruit. It's not, like in our case, this wasn't the reason we did it.
Right.
But it's wonderful harvest that came from what we in fact did.
Love it.
And it's engaging.
So we talk about how easy, again, a lot of these people that we talked to out in your county were one-man bands.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I remember it had to be easy to transition. It had to save them time. It had to be less work. It couldn't be, I remember people saying, it can't be one more thing that you put on my plate.
Right.
So I remember even getting into this part of the leadership challenge where we did enable others to act and foster that collaboration. I remember it might have even been in this room that we're in where we onboarded very quickly even 40 organizations,
Yes.
At a time. That was exciting.
It was very exciting, and you ask any audience, do you like change, and everybody says yes. And then you ask them, well, do you want to change? And nobody raises their hand. So change is always, it takes leadership and perseverance. So there was, like, well, how would we do this and all of that kind of stuff. I remember one piece, it's only one piece of this, but one piece where people are so used to the traditional newsletter and that all the content has to go to Billy Bob or Susie Q on the third Monday of the month. And then Billy and Susie, the Friday before, go, well, I haven't gotten anything. And then, those of us that have content get the call. It's like,
what do you got for the newsletter?
Oh, please put bamboo shoots in my eyes. I don't want to have to do it. I'm too busy, and all of that kind of stuff. And this allows anybody that has content to produce that content and make it available on their schedule. And so everybody becomes enabled. And Susie Q and Billy Bob, in my example, are no longer the choke point, nor are they feeling like they're letting the world down because they can't get the content.
Yeah.
It's very much an enabling and an engaging exercise.
You never have to do design another newsletter again. And I know we even you can share content, across those circles, and even
Yes.
have external feeds. I know some of, again, those small town guys struggle to develop content, so you can pull in external, industry news and blogs into that and really beef up the content, again, to provide value.
And very powerful, very powerful. I use that through our leadership distribution is using other content along with my own wonderful content.
I love your content, Bob. I'm going to steal all your
thank you.
content.
Thank you.
And then the last part, again, about the leadership challenge is this platform. We really do want to encourage the heart. So on all the content archive pages of each one of the organizations using Circle, it really does recognize and it gives everyone a voice, and it really does celebrate the value and the victories that go along with this piece of the leadership challenge.
It does. So it gives the organization, how large or small, the opportunity to say, look at the value that we've delivered. Look what the value that John just did for us. Look at the value that these Milford students did. Look at the value of what's going on in our parks, et cetera, et cetera. It very much is a platform, and it very much has a natural ability to be able to encourage one another's hearts. Here's what's going on, and here's who did it.
I love it. So one of the things that, if you're interested in learning more, Bob, again, with his expertise and really facilitating that leadership challenge, people, it's okay if they I'm assuming, to reach out to you via email to learn more about that.
Sure.
Or to
Would
get your
be
help
happy
on
to.
that. Great.
Would be happy to.
And then with us, if you're interested in using, Circle, I think people would be surprised. I think we even got some questions here now that what is the cost? We have made this very affordable. It's probably less than what you're paying now. I know there's rates that are even, as low as, $80 a month. So I know sometimes I love to get the pricing question, and so that people know, sometimes when they look at it, they're like, oh gosh, we can't afford this. But we have made it affordable so that you can truly engage your audience.
On the price thing, if I could just interrupt. So remember that example I gave a couple of minutes ago and I used Susie Q and Billy Bob. So a lot of times that person, a good percentage of that person is to collect content, is to herd the content, is to badger people to produce the content, et cetera, et cetera. With engagement that goes out, that everybody can now be a producer, that person now gets time back. Arguably time, and I would make a strong argument, time back that can be converted into really value-added work. Arguably, it's not value-added work to call you up 4 times and say, where's your content I got to produce? Yeah. And so I think there's a cost savings, and there's a value-generating opportunity when you can convert that role into a more engaged, value-added role.
So the way that again, I want to remind people, we're going to take a couple more minutes because we're almost at our time today, but I do want to take 2 or 3 minutes worth of questions because we've got some coming in. If you ask a question, it does not appear live on the screen. So some people still have that 3rd grade, I'm scared to ask a question, I'll ask the dumb one. So don't think any question that you ask is dumb, but we will read it out loud for the benefit of the entire audience. So another question that we've got here, can our town have a circle of its own, but also one for our library, one for parks, one for rec? Yes, circles built in a way and designed, we figured this out with your county, where you can have an umbrella circle like Connect Clermont, but each individual entity can have a circle of its own. So yes, you can.
And that's powerful.
Well, and you can connect,
Correct.
But yet also, have your own distribution channel. Another question again that we have is, does our content get archived after it gets sent out? Yes, it does. This also helps with your SEO, count, so nothing is ever lost. And that way, citizens can now go back and search what is everything that the county's doing on Parks and Rec, or what is, I have kids at the library, what are the summer reading programs? All right, we're gonna wait 30 more seconds for any other questions. How much of a tech person do I have to be to use the platform? Love this question. We have built this platform. A lot of people ask us about training. You don't need training. If you did need training, then we wouldn't have built a platform to use it. Again, this platform was built by, I would say, ordinary people who are extraordinary. That it's not built, it was built for people that are very busy, that wear a lot of different hats, and built for the small town guy. Although we've got lots of big town people using it, it is intentionally to be designed in a way that it's very, very easy to hop on, that creates, like you said, Bob, less work, and saves you time in that. So I think with that, if you have any other questions, what we're going to do is, for everyone that attended today, we will send you sort of a list of highlights. We'll include a link possibly to the Leadership Challenge, Bob, to your stuff if you're okay with us
Absolutely.
Sending that out. And feel free to do a test. We know that people are risk averse. We've learned that through this process. And so if you just want to simply test it to see how it would work, we would love to take you through our engagement planning process. Even that exercise is a good exercise to go through. So we'll send you the recording that you can share it. We'll send you the links. And we're just grateful to have your time today and to really share this excitement of this exciting story of Clermont County. And you just are so lucky to have such great leaders. And Bob, thank you for being with us today.
Sarah, I really appreciate being invited. I hope that I was of some help to the people that are listening in now and in the future. This is a great platform. This whole strengths-based approach and the belief that there's greatness inside of everybody. I hope that folks that are listening here and others take that as a model to go forward. So thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And here's, again, thank you to all of our audience. We connect with us offline, and we hope that we can continue to help you engage your audience like never before.